The Toronto Blue Jays quickly built their organization from the ground up after a 3-year stretch starting in 2017 with 3 fourth-place finishes in a row. They built through their lineup, drafting and developing really solid young players and making a couple timely free agent signings as well. This resulted in 3 playoff appearances, but unfortunately they lost in the first round every single one of those years. This led to a rebranding of their rebuild, and they ended up prioritizing defense and pitching over hitting. Also on the back burner, their best player, Vladimir Guerrero Jr, is entering free agency this offseason. Did the Blue Jays build a winner in 2025, or are they going to have to start again from the ground up in 2026? If you enjoy this type of content, please subscribe to the channel and like the video. I'll be rolling out every other Major League Baseball team before opening day. Let's get into the Toronto Blue Jays. I'll go right into team ranks, and I want you to know that everything here is completely objective. I'll have the formula for these rankings in the description of the video. The Blue Jays Major League roster came right at their 2/3 mark in baseball with a 20th overall ranking. Pretty huge steps back from their lineup and bullpen resulted in this, but a rotation and defense that really took a step forward in 2024. A model that has shown to be successful for some franchises like the Milwaukee Brewers and Cleveland Guardians, but the lineup and bullpen really lagged behind, and that resulted in the season that the Blue Jays had last year. The only stat the Blue Jays ranked in the top 13 in all of baseball was on base percentage on the offensive side, and on the relief pitching side, they didn't rank above 22nd in any of the stats listed by Fangraphs. More of the same in the minor league ranks as well, a really solid group of minor league pitchers led by a top 100 prospect, and a group of minor league hitters that just doesn't have as much depth as most of the organizations in baseball. We'll go right into the organizational brain trust here. John Schneider is the manager. This is his 4th season with the Blue Jays. His record here, 209 and 188, so he has had success. And then the general manager, Ross Atkins, he's seen this entire thing through. This is his 10th season with the Toronto Blue Jays, 4 playoff appearances in that span, and just over a 500 record as the general manager. Last season, a huge step back in the win column for the Toronto Blue Jays, 74 wins in 2024. Last placed in the American League East, 12th in the American League. This was after 3 seasons of 89 plus wins for the Blue Jays, but this is a team that spends a lot of money on their roster. $219 million was their payroll last season. That's 9th in all of baseball, and that's a huge positive for the Blue Jays, as we'll see a little bit later when we get to the offseason. The PECOTA projections from 2025 do really like the Blue Jays to take another step forward, though. A projected 85 and 77 record, that would put them at 3rd in a tough American League East, and their payroll went up this offseason, even though it was already in the top 10. $238 million. They made some really big offseason signings. Their playoff odds for this season over 50% at 51.5, a pretty big jump compared to the last few teams we've done here. Did end up losing one of their top 100 picks due to one of their free agent signings, but still number 8 and 81 in the top 100. That number 8 pick should be very valuable for them. Into some of the top contracts, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is in his last year of arbitration this year, but is making a really big number because he has been successful, $28.5 million. George Springer and Kevin Gausman both brought over from free agency on big contracts. They're making $24 and $23 million respectively. I mentioned they last made the playoffs in 2023, unfortunately lost in the first round of the playoff series to the Seattle Mariners. Their park factor, which is a stat that measures how much of a hitter's or pitcher's park that you play at, is right at the middle in 100. That's league average, so they're at 14th in the entire league. And then in terms of rest of the organization success, not a ton from the Blue Jays minor league teams last year. The Vancouver Canadians and Dunedin Blue Jays were both over 500. Buffalo Bisons in AAA, 68 and 90, and the New Hampshire Fisher Cats in AA, 52 and 84 last season. The Blue Jays might be dealing with one of the biggest storylines in all of baseball this season in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. Vlad just said in an interview that he talked to Blue Jays guys and said that he wanted a deal under $600 million, which is something that I think if he has the season that he had last year, he'll definitely get, if not a little more. The Blue Jays weren't able to come to terms with him before the season started. Will they be able to win enough games to keep Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in Toronto? I do really think he wants to be here long term. I think the Blue Jays just have to show him that they can win games with how the roster is currently constructed. The next one, really need offense to come back. Bichette took a huge step back last year, was dealing with a lot of injuries, but didn't really perform when he was out there either. A lot of other guys took steps back. There's a couple of guys that aren't even on this roster anymore for the Blue Jays, and they brought in one specific pretty big bat in Anthony Santander to help clean up their offense. they have to go back to being one of those really solid offenses in baseball to be competitive. And then finally, bullpen adds and a bullpen bounce back. Jeff Hoffman, shown there, brought in to be their closer this offseason. They brought a couple other guys in, as we'll go over in this next slide here, and they just really need to get back into where they used to be as a bullpen. Former closer Jordan Romano is gone. He's in Philadelphia after a pretty tough season last year. They rebuilt their bullpen a little bit this year. How good can they be in 2025? I mentioned a really big offseason for the Blue Jays, and that it was. I think this is one of the best offseasons in all of baseball. They brought in Andres Gimenez in a trade with Cleveland. Spencer Horwitz went over to Cleveland in that trade, ended up in Pittsburgh. Anthony Santander, a huge deal, 5 years, $92.5 million. Max Scherzer, 1 year, $15.5 million. Jeff Hoffman brought in to be the closer, 3 years, $33 million after a deal fell through with the Baltimore Orioles. Yimi Garcia brought in as another part of this bullpen. Nick Sandlin also brought in that trade with Gimenez and Spencer Horwitz involved. Miles Straw, another piece of that deal as well. The only Major League offseason subtractions with positive WAR last season were Spencer Horwitz and Dylan Tate for this organization. It's a really solid parts in, parts out for the Blue Jays. Before I go into specifics here, I'll go over a couple of numbers on the screen. WOBA is weighted on base average. Just think about it as on base percentage, but everything is weighed differently, meaning a homer is weighed more than a triple, which is weighed more than a double, etc. League average for that is 310. Rule of thumb for it, if it would be a good on base percentage, it would be a good WOBA. Weighted runs created plus is the second stat here. Every plus stat, the league average is going to be 100. Everything above or below that is a percent better or worse that you are compared to league average. Just think of it as a comprehensive offensive statistic to show how good you were as a hitter last season. Based off of the Fangraphs projections I have listed here in the parentheses, they do really expect this group to take a step forward in 2025. Bichette, their long-term shortstop, he's also going to be a free agent after this season. Projected to be 16% better than league average, 18 homers, just under 3 WAR. Had a rough 2024. They think he's going to bounce back this year. Vlad Jr., their real best player here, 52% better than league average, projected 32 homers and under 5 WAR as a first baseman. Just an incredible player. He's projected top 10 at his position in WAR this year. Anthony Santander, brought in from Baltimore, projected 36 homers and 3.1 WAR. Not much of a defender, but a guy who I think is going to play a lot of DH. George Springer, again, another guy who didn't have a great season last year. 20 homers, though, projected and over league average as a hitter. Daulton Varsho, currently listed as the DH. He's dealing with an injury going into the season that's going to hamper him from playing the outfield for just a little bit. He is the best defender, though, on this team. One of the best outfield defenders in all of baseball. He'll end up playing a lot of outfield this year for Toronto, and I would assume Santander is going to shift over to DH. Kirk at catcher, projected just under 4 WAR and another step forward for him offensively this year after a tough 2024. Andres Gimenez, brought over in the trade with Cleveland. He's projected to be one of the best second basemen in baseball, one of the best defenders that we have in our game as well. And then the two guys in this lineup not projected to be above league average are Ernie Clement at third base and Joey Loperfido, brought over from Houston at the trade deadline last season. They'll give you a combined 1.8 WAR projected next season. On the bench, Tyler Heinemann, the backup catcher, projected 0.6 WAR in 2025. Will Wagner, I think, a really solid player and going to be a contributor to this team. Davis Schneider, and then Miles Straw, a decent defender, but not much of a hitter on the bench here. Given these projected numbers, supposed to be a real solid lineup in 2025, and we'll get into this veteran-laden rotation, starting with Kevin Gausman. He's projected to be top 30 at his position, and he's been really good since he came over to Toronto. Projected a 3.79 ERA and 3 WAR in 2025. Jose Berrios came over from Minnesota a few years ago and signed a long-term extension with Toronto. Just under 2 WAR projected for him next season. Chris Bassit, a 4.09 ERA. He's going to be another real solid veteran piece for this rotation. Max Scherzer, I mentioned, brought over in free agency from Texas last year. Didn't pitch a full season, but was pretty solid when he was out there last year. And then the only young guy in this rotation, Bowden Francis. An interesting one, had a solid season last year. He's projected a 4.13 ERA and 1.5 WAR. This is a really solid projected group of pitchers. Gausman, Berrios, and Bassit all projected to give you a lot of innings this year. They do slant towards the older side of the spectrum here, and that could hurt them over the long term, but it could also be beneficial to them in 2025. A real solid projected bullpen here as well. Jeff Hoffman, brought over from Philadelphia. If you don't know him, he had one of the best seasons as a reliever last year. Chad Green, 3.94 ERA projected. Yimi Garcia, another guy they brought over in free agency, under a 4 ERA. Sandlin, Little, and Yariel Rodriguez are all projected under 4 ERAs in this bullpen, projecting a big bounce back from Eric Swanson after last season. Tommy Nance projected a 4.16 ERA and just over a 20% strikeout rate. One big thing with this bullpen is you're going to get a lot of strikeouts. Brendan Little, the only guy with under a 20% strikeout rate, but also the only lefty in this entire pen. That could be a place to pick up at the deadline if the Blue Jays get off to a solid start this year. Yariel Rodriguez might start some games for this team as well and can give you some multi-inning relief appearances out of this bullpen. A really solid projected group. I really like Jeff Hoffman as their closer. I think this is a plus for them going into the season. Before I get into the breakdowns here, I'll go over some of the numbers really quickly. On your cards, you're going to have WAR per 162 since 2022 or since they've been called up. Your slash line, weighted runs created plus, WOBA, homer, steals, and games played. Remember, WOBA league average is 310, weighted runs created plus average is 100. The OFF, BSR, and DEF are going to be offense, base running, and defense run values. That's in terms of percentiles compared to the league from Baseball Savant. On the Baseball Savant page, you're going to have some expected stats like expected WOBA, batting average, and slug, some of your hard hit stats, and then plate discipline stats will be on there as well, alongside defense and base running. So we'll get started here with Alejandro Kirk. He's the catcher, 26 years old, been a very valuable player the last few years for the Blue Jays, 4.2 WAR per 162. Last season, a bit of a step back offensively, below league average as a hitter and 5 homers in 103 games. He had a great season offensively in 2022, a 787 OPS and 14 homers. He's more of a bat-to-ball guy than anything, but that season he was really hitting the ball hard. Last year, he hit the ball decently hard and didn't really get the projected numbers that he had, really lagging behind his projected numbers in every stat, specifically slugging and the expected WOBA. A better second half than a first half, a 718 OPS in that second half. I think offensively, I expect him to take a step up in 2025. He was hitting the ball a bit harder than he did in 2023, and his plate discipline was still really solid. Defensively, a really good player behind the plate, caught stealing above average, way up there in percentiles, even though his pop time isn't great. Framing, really solid, and an above average catcher at blocking. 98th percentile in defensive run value by Baseball Savant. The base running isn't good for him. He's not really much of a base runner. At 5'8", 245, you wouldn't really expect that from him. He's going to be a free agent after the 2026 season. I think a really solid catcher here for the Blue Jays and someone I expect to take a step forward offensively. Tyler Heinemann here to be the backup catcher. I have listed his AAA stats on the card. Didn't get much of a run in the majors last year and really wasn't good at all when he was up. A pretty solid hitter in the minors, although it was the minor leagues, 33 years old. He's here to be the backup catcher, an above average defender, which is really nice to have. Hit righties a bit better than Kirk did. I could see him getting a few platoon at-bats here and there against right-handed pitching. A catching group that wasn't great last year in terms of value, but I do expect them to take a step back to being a successful group in 2025. One of my favorite players in the entire league, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., 25 years old. He was 65% better than league average offensively last year. 30 homers for him, but that's not even where he is at his best. Just a great overall hitter. Hit 323 last year, almost a 400 on base percentage and a 544 slug. He was out there every single day, and he was in the 98th percentile offensively. Not going to give you much as a base runner or a defender, but that's not where he derives his value from. Funnily enough, for Vlad Jr., he actually underperformed a couple of his numbers as well. The expected WOBA at 408, he had a 398 WOBA last year, so he was even hitting the ball better than the results that he got. The expected slugging number is even a bit higher than his actual slug. He's really solid at hitting the ball hard. The one area that he can improve in, I think, as a hitter is a launch angle sweet spot. That's the percent of the time that you hit the ball between 8 and 24 degrees in the launch angle, or the sweet spot of the launch angle. He had kind of been known over the past couple of years to be a guy who hits the ball super hard but hits it into the ground a lot and doesn't put himself in advantageous situations with that launch angle. Just to show you that it works, he went from 29th percentile to 62nd percentile in 2025. That moved him from a 789 OPS to a 940 OPS this season. While Vlad has always hit the ball really hard, he has good plate discipline numbers. He's had kind of a mixed bag in terms of results. 940 OPS last year, 789 the year before, 819 the year before that, and then a 2021 season where he finished second in MVP voting behind Shohei Ohtani. If Vlad can show that he can be a consistent hitter and put up another season like he did last year, we're talking $600 million, maybe plus for him in free agency. he's not going to give you really much value at all from his fielding or his speed. So you do need him to be an above average hitter to really be rewarded that contract. I do think he has it in him. I love Vlad Jr., one of my favorite players to watch. Got better as the season went on last year, a 1.128 OPS in the second half, actually more homers in much less plate appearances in that second half as well. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is your first baseman for the 2025 Blue Jays. Andres Gimenez, brought over in a trade with the Cleveland Guardians for Spencer Horwitz, derives a lot of his value in the fact that he is the best defender in all of baseball, 100th percentile in outs above average, up there in the 97th percentile in defensive run value. The Guardians kind of wanted to move off of him because he has a contract. If you're a team like the Blue Jays that's going to spend money on your organization, might as well go acquire a player like this when you can. Past 2 seasons have really been a struggle offensively for him, though. 8th percentile in offensive run value, 83 weighted runs created plus, a 281 WOBA. He had a very good 2022 season, an 837 OPS and 17 homers. Last 2 years, 713 and a 638 OPS in those 2 seasons. Even in that 2022 year, his average exit velocity and barrel rates were just about the 30th percentile in baseball. Last year, right at around 10 to 15th percent. Under contract until 2030, he's going to give you a ton of value defensively. Can he go back to being an above average hitter? Because if he can, this is one of the most valuable players in the league. Ernie Clement here at third base. I actually didn't know how solid of a player he was last season for the Blue Jays. 94 weighted runs created plus, but 12 homers and 12 steals. Does a lot of things pretty well offensively. He won't strike out. That expected batting average number is pretty high, although he doesn't really hit the ball hard. He can be an above average player offensively, 58th percentile in offensive run value, and he brings a lot of value to this team in base running and defensive perspectives. Really great at range over there at third base and pretty solid sprint speed. Hits righties pretty well as a right-handed hitter. Tailed off a bit in the second half last year, a 670 OPS, but I think a really solid high floor player here at third base. I don't think he's your long-term option, but really adds to the defense of this team and is a good base runner here for the Blue Jays at third base. So Bichette here at shortstop, 26 years old, 3.9 WAR per 162 since 2022, but he was really bad last year. 71 weighted runs created plus, 281 WOBA in 81 games. A bit of bad luck with some of his batted ball stuff. His expected WOBA was 303, but even then, still a pretty big step back for him. The past 2 years before this, Bichette an 814 and an 802 OPS, 20 and 24 homers in those 2 years, and he was out there the entire season. When Bo is right, he's going to be up there in the league in hits. Historically, he's not the greatest defender at shortstop, more of a hit-first shortstop than anything, but last year he actually was above average in range in those 81 games. In 2024, a 380 OPS against lefties. In 2023, an 893, and in 2022, a 789. So that's really where he took his biggest step back last year. Pre-All-Star break, a 594 OPS and just 8 plate appearances after that last year. He needs to take a step back towards the Bichette that we've seen in 23 and 22. A, if he wants to get that contract, and B, if he wants to help out this Blue Jays lineup in 2025. A new addition in left field coming over from the division rival Baltimore Orioles, Anthony Santander, a great hitter, 29% better than league average, 44 home runs for him last year, 79th percentile in offense, doesn't bring you a lot base running or defense wise. I would expect him over the terms of this contract to really move into that DH spot, but a really good hitter. One of the most underrated power bats in our game. The last 3 seasons, 44, 28, and 33 home runs. OPS right around 800 every single year. Hits the ball hard, hits the ball on the barrel. He did overperform his expected stats by a little bit last year, but when you're hitting the ball out of the park, there's not really much you can say about that. 30 years old, does have an opt-out after the 2026 season if he decides to exercise that. Again, currently listed as the left fielder, but I wouldn't expect him to play there. I think Daulton Varsho is going to move back into this outfield, and the Blue Jays will shuffle it around again. As a switch hitter, a little better as a left-handed hitter. The right side, not as bad though either, a 794 OPS against lefty last season. A bit better in the second half as well, an 828 OPS. A really solid bat to bring in for the Toronto Blue Jays on a big contract. Loperfido here at center field, currently a pretty solid defender and base runner that's going to be playing center field right to start the season for the Blue Jays. I don't know if I expect him to be up all season, but with the Varsho injury, he's going to go into center field. I mentioned came over from Houston in the Yusei Kikuchi trade at the deadline last season. None of the expected stats really like him at all. He does have pretty solid bat speed, 26% below league average as a hitter last year, just 25 years old, and last season was his first run in the majors. I think more of a high floor player than anything. One thing to watch for him, didn't really give you anything against lefties last year, but in the minors in 2024, a 987 OPS against lefties. Overall in the minor leagues last year, an 880 OPS in 124 games and 25 homers, so there's definitely something to dream on here for Joey Loperfido. George Springer, entering his age 35 season, brought over from the Astros a couple years ago and is entering the final stages of this contract. He was a bit below league average as a hitter last year, 19 homers and 16 steals in 145 games. Has been valuable for them, 2.7 WAR per 162. A lot of his value comes from his base running. He's really, really good there. Pretty good plate discipline stats, but just didn't really hit the ball as hard last season. Kind of gradually declining as the years go on for him at the plate. 814 OPS in 22, 732 in 23 to a 674 in 2024. Average exit velocity and hard hit rate numbers went down a lot in 2024. A guy that doesn't really hit the ball at advantageous launch angles as well. Just 6th percentile in launch angle sweet spot percentage last year. The whiff rate kind of came back a bit last year, though. He's whiffing on a lot of pitches in 22 and 23. Will give you about league average range out there in right field, but the arm value was not very good for him last year, leading to the defensive stats. His splits last year against lefties, a 579 OPS. In 2023, a 710 OPS against lefties. In 2022, a 788. Got a bit worse in the second half last year, as well as 661 OPS. Not a great August or September for Springer. Entering the final stages of his contract, as I mentioned, 35 years old. Let's see if he can bring you anything offensively this season. I mentioned Andres Gimenez was the best defender in baseball. I'm actually going to hold my tongue on that because I think Daulton Varsho is the best defender in baseball. 100th percentile in defensive run value. The range and the arm value are both really good. He's going to start the season at DH. He's coming back from an injury and hasn't been throwing. I think that is going to hurt their team defense right away just because of how much he can bring you there. Even when he's not an above average bat, he can still bring so much value to this roster because of what he does on the defense and base running sides. 75th percentile in base running runs as well. You got to shout out University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee when talking about Varsho as well. 18 homers last year, 20 the year before, 27 the year before that. Did have a better season overall offensively last year, though. If he can get back to being, a league average or maybe a bit above as a hitter, he just brings so much value to this team. Pretty interesting for him. The last 2 seasons, he's actually hit lefties a lot better than righties. In 2022, he hit lefties to a 551 OPS. Last season, an 813. He got better as the season went on last year, a 719 OPS in the second half. No matter what you get from Varsho offensively, he's going to be a really valuable player just because of what he brings on the defensive side. I'm going to go a bit deeper into this bench than I usually do because I think a lot of these guys are going to play for the Blue Jays this year. Will Wagner, son of Billy Wagner, 4.1 WAR per 162 since he came up, 25% better than league average as a hitter last year. I think he's going to play a lot for this team. The hard hit numbers for him are just outrageous. The expected WOBA, expected batting average, expected slugging are all in the top 20th percentile in baseball. The hard hit rate, squared up rate, all in the top 10th percentile. He doesn't strike out a lot. Really, his only flaw as a hitter is he doesn't walk a ton, but I think a really solid player. He did have a really small sample last year, so it's tough to take a lot from that, but I think he's going to play for the Jays this year. Nathan Lucas here, a 30-year-old rookie last season for the Blue Jays, another guy that put up really good numbers in a short time up in the majors. All of the expected numbers are pretty solid. The K rate and walk rate are both really good. He actually walked more than he struck out last year, which is pretty crazy. Didn't whiff a lot, and he's an above average arm in the outfield. Davis Schneider, maybe the biggest tale of 2 years guy that I've seen in this entire series so far. 1.007 OPS in 2023. Did a lot of things really well. The barrel rate is up there. The walk rate is way up there. In 2024, a 625 OPS. A lot of the same stats are high, but just didn't really hit the ball as well. K rate in the 4th percentile. Whiffs a lot. An outfielder, infielder combo guy that can play utility really everywhere. Him and Wagner will do a lot of that. I think all 3 of these guys are going to contribute to the Blue Jays in 2025. I do really like this lineup. There's a couple things that need to take a step up. Call it cautious optimism for me, but I think I can expect some pretty big things from this lineup in 2025. Going into the pitching side of things, I'll go over some stats quick. On the card, WAR per season I went with because of a lot of the pitching injuries that have been happening recently. Innings pitched, ERA. FIP stands for fielder independent pitching. We can really see that as kind of a projector of ERA. We expect those two numbers to be really close over a long sample. Stuff plus and location plus, two models built by Saris at Fangraphs, really put a lot of things that pitchers do into this model. Stuff plus is really just going to be a measure of how good your stuff is as a pitcher. 100 for that is league average. Location plus is going to be how good you're locating your pitches. Again, 100 for that is league average. We'll start with Kevin Gausman here. He's been really solid for the Blue Jays since he came over in free agency. 34 years old, 4.5 wins above replacement per season since 2022. 3.83 ERA. The FIP is even a bit lower. Not great stuff, but he locates his pitches really well. There are a couple kind of concerning signs for Gausman here that I'll go over really quickly. One thing for him, the fastball velo has gone down over a mile an hour in the past 2 seasons. The K rate really tanked for him. In 2023, 93rd percentile. Last season, 36th percentile. Gave up a lot more hard contact last season. Really, a lot of the expected numbers didn't like him, but he still did have a really solid season. The last 3 years, 383, 316, and 335 ERA. 31 starts in all 3 of those seasons. He's got a lot of innings under his belt. He has been a very solid pitcher this entire time in Toronto and the ace of this staff. Giving you some playoff innings here. His off-speed pitches are really his bread and butter. 91st percentile in off-speed run value in 2024. The fastball took a big step back last year. 95th percentile to 38th percentile in 2024. We'll see what we get out of Gausman this year. I'm a little scared given some of the signs here, but I think he can still be a really good pitcher. He's going to go out there and give you innings no matter what. He's been the ace of the staff for years. Solid number 1 for the Blue Jays to have. Jose Berrios here as your number 2. He's here on a 7-year deal, a 3.60 ERA last season. The FIP was a lot higher, but when you have a great defense behind you, those things really get helped. Another guy that the expected stats really didn't like as much, but over a full season still put up really good numbers. The stuff wasn't very good last year. It took a step back from where he's been before, but he located his pitches really well. The fastball, breaking, and off-speed pitches are all above average, leading to 72nd percentile in pitching run value last year. Not generating as many whiffs or strikeouts as he did in 2023. Had a really solid season that year, a 3.65 ERA, 32 starts, 189 innings. Another guy who's always going to be out there. The last 3 seasons, he's given you 32 starts each. Never been one that's going to go out there and walk a ton of guys, but he gave up a lot of hard contact last year and didn't really get strikeouts. The expected ERA number at 4.74 is a bit concerning. Again, Berrios, though, is just 30 years old. He has a track record of success in the majors. He's been a really solid pitcher for a long time up here. He does have over 1,400 innings already on his arm. Just a really weird 2022 season with a 5.23 ERA and 172 innings on his mantle. Again, going in with cautious optimism, kind of the same as Gausman. The expected stats weren't great, but he can do a couple things differently this year and change that up for the Blue Jays. The 3 starter here, Chris Bassit, 36 years old, so you're kind of seeing a trend here at older rotation. 2.5 wins per season since 2022, 4.16 ERA, 4.08 FIP. Another guy with a really high expected ERA compared to his actual ERA. I think the defense does really help with a lot of them. Really interesting for him. Throws 8 pitches as a starter. The fastballs were pretty solid for him last year. All the breaking and off-speed pitches got hit pretty hard. He'll be a free agent after this season. Another guy that's going to go out there and pitch, though. 32 starts last season. In 2024, walked a lot more guys than he did the past 2 seasons before. Didn't really get the chases that he did the last 2 seasons in terms of results. 3.60 ERA, 3.42 ERA, and 33 and 30 starts respectively. I don't think I'm as concerned with Bassit as the fastball velo numbers are right around the same, and it's really the walk rate that hurt him last year. Has been really good in terms of numbers the last 2 years in the majors, just took a step back in a couple categories last year. I think he can go back to being a really solid pitcher in 2025. The timeless Max Scherzer, 40 years old, 2.4 WAR per season in the last 3 years, under a 4 ERA. He did have really good expected numbers when he was out there, though. Still has great stuff, still locates his pitches really well. Just 9 starts for Texas last season. He was dealing with some injuries, still generated a lot of chases and whiffs. The walk rate is pretty low. Didn't give up a ton of hard contact. I think it's crazy to say as he's the 40-year-old on the staff, but I think I'm the most excited about him going into this season. The last 2 years before this, 3.77 and a 2.29 ERA. Although he's not giving you full seasons, he'll miss a few starts here and there. 27 and 23 starts those last 2 years. When Scherzer's good, he's got a great fastball going and really good breaking pitches. The 40-year-old Scherzer coming over from Texas on a 1-year $15 million deal. I think he can have a really good season in Toronto. Bowden Francis as the 5 starter had a really good season last year, 3.30 ERA. The FIP is much higher though, again really helped out by a solid defense behind him. The fastball and off-speed pitches were really good, 92nd and 79th percentile respectively. He doesn't walk a ton of guys and doesn't give up as much hard contact as some of the other guys in this rotation, though he doesn't get as many strikeouts either. Came up and got some relief outings in 2023, a 1.73 ERA and 36.1 innings in the majors. He's been really successful the entire time that he's been up. Former Milwaukee Brewers draftee. He will give up a barrel here and there, 28th percentile in barrel rate, and the ball does get hit in the air a lot against him, 8th percentile in ground ball rate. Does a lot of things well, doesn't get a ton of strikeouts, so I don't know if that high end potential is there for him, but I think a really solid starter specifically at the 5 spot for Toronto. A few other guys that might come up and contribute here, Jake Bloss, Eric Lauer, and Adam Kloffenstein. I'll go over Bloss as a prospect. Yariel Rodriguez might also get some starts, but this is the Blue Jays rotation for this season. A bit of concern, but I think I'm really excited for a couple of these guys as well. 3 real solid bullpen options here at the back end for the Blue Jays. Jeff Hoffman coming over as the closer. Great last year. 112 on the stuff plus, 2.17 ERA, 2.52 FIP. All of the expected numbers are incredible. Chase, whiff, and K rate all in the 96th percentile in baseball. A really solid 4-seam and sinker. He was in the 80th percentile in pitching run value last year as a reliever. Will give up some hard contact, but he was just so good last year for Philly. A really good addition for the Blue Jays. Chad Green last season gave up a ton of hard contact. 1st percentile in average exit velocity, 4th in a hard hit rate, but he doesn't walk a lot of guys, gets a lot of chases on his pitches. The expected ERA was just 3.8, so not very bad there either. 91st percentile on fastball run value. The breaking pitches weren't as good last year, but good stuff, a 3.21 ERA. Yimi Garcia here, welcome back to Toronto. 122 stuff plus last season for Garcia at 34 years old. 32% strikeout rate. A whole lot of red on that Savant page. Cardi would be proud. Expected ERA, batting average numbers are all very low. The chase rate, K rate, whiff rate, average exit velocity all really low as well. He'll give up some barrels and doesn't get the ball hit into the ground enough, but really solid for Yimi Garcia. He's been a good bullpen option for the past few years. Getting the rest of this bullpen, Eric Swanson sounds like he's dealing with some elbow soreness right now, but still listed on Fangraphs as a projected bullpen piece. Not a great year. The last 2 years before this, 2.97 and 1.68 ERA. Gave up a lot of hard contact last year and didn't get the strikeouts that he got in the past. When he's on, his off-speed pitches are really solid. Nick Sandlin brought over from Cleveland, a guy with a good ERA. The FIP is a step behind. 27.6% strikeout rate though. Gets a lot of whiffs and strikeouts. The off-speed pitches, 97th percentile in run value. Brendan Little here, your lefty in this bullpen, was really good in his first real run in the majors last year for the Blue Jays. Ground ball rate in the 100th percentile. Doesn't give up a lot of hard contact, but doesn't give many strikeouts or walks either. The breaking pitches were really good last year. The fastball not as good, but he does a lot of things really well in terms of limiting hard contact. Tommy Nance, a 4.09 ERA last season in 22 innings. Another guy, really good ground ball rate. The average exit velocity is pretty low. Doesn't get a ton of strikeouts or whiffs. Doesn't walk a ton of guys. A ball in play, but not a hard contact guy. And then Yariel Rodriguez as your long guy here. Came over from Cuba last season. Kind of a mixed bag for him. 4.47 ERA in 86.2 innings. All of them were starts for him last year. Average exit velocity number is pretty low. Got about league average strikeouts and whiffs. The barrel rate was pretty good. Walked too many guys, and that was really his downfall. The expected ERA was just at 4. I think he's a really good pitcher. I think he's going to be good for the Blue Jays this year, and I think he finds his way into that rotation at some point. So a real solid back end of the bullpen for the Blue Jays. A couple question marks here in the middle relief section. I think that's one piece that they can add at the deadline, but you feel really good about the back end relief options for the Blue Jays. Into the prospect section here, just one top 100 guy by Baseball America for the Blue Jays, Ricky Tiedemann. Unfortunately for him, going to miss this entire season with an injury. A really solid prospect, had some real issues last year in the minors though. Just 17 innings for him last year, but a 5.19 ERA, a 6.74 FIP, 3 above average pitches. The slider is very good. The control is all right for him as well. Just 22 years old. He should come back in 2026 and be a positive for this Blue Jays team. Trey Savage, 20th overall pick in the 2024 draft out of East Carolina University. Didn't play last year in the minors. They brought him up a bit slow. 21 years old, really good fastball, slider, and splitter. Needs to develop that curveball a little bit more. The control is all right as well. I think he can really develop into a good starting rotation option for the Blue Jays. Arjun Namala, a shortstop for the Blue Jays here. Incredible numbers last year in the minors. 25% better than league average, a 375 WOBA, and 17 homers. Needs to develop that hit tool just a little bit, but the power, field, run, and arm are very solid tools for him. Just 19 years old. The 20th overall pick in 2023, the highest drafted player of Indian descent in baseball history. A really cool story. I think if he keeps putting up numbers like this, he could be a real fast riser in the system and maybe make that top 100 next season for the Blue Jays. Let's get into this group of infield prospects for the Blue Jays. Orelvis Martinez, 45 hit tool, a 60 power, and a 55 arm. The run and field lag is a bit behind. Got up to the majors last year as the number 4 prospect for the Jays. Just 3 plate appearances up with the Blue Jays in the majors last year. 74 games in AAA though, 17 homers, 375 WOBA, 20% better than league average. A really solid player. Strikeout rate a bit high, but still I think a really solid bat to ball player. He can make really hard contact, a good infielder. I would expect him to be up again with the Blue Jays this year and hopefully play some meaningful games. Josh Kasevich, 60th overall pick in 2022, 128 games last year, 6 homers, 13 steals, 6% better than league average over double and AAA. Actually got better when he got up to AAA, 16% better than average there. Not much power in his bat, but a really good hit tool and does everything else really well. Sean Keys, the number 24 prospect here, a third baseman. 4th round pick of last year's draft out of Bucknell University. Came into A-ball last year and crushed it. 34% better than league average, over a 13% walk rate. Peyton Williams, a first baseman and a dog at the plate. 50 hit tool, 60 power. Doesn't really do anything else, but a really solid hitter. An older prospect, 24 years old this season, got up to high A, but 33% better than league average there last year. A 12.4% walk rate, 11 homers in just 85 games. Finally, Christopher Polanco, an international signing. Couldn't find a single picture of him on the entire internet. Really solid tools for him, a 60 hit, 55 power, and 55 arm. He's one to really get excited about. If he puts up decent numbers through the system, he can move up very quickly for the Blue Jays. A really good crop of outfielders for the Jays here, starting with Alan Roden, got up to AAA, 25 years old. I would expect him to make it up to the majors this year. 60 hit tool, everything else is about average or a bit better. 136 weighted runs created plus last year in AA and AAA, 16 homers in 125 games along with 14 stolen bases, 12.1% walk rate, a 14.2% strikeout rate. This is a legit hitter, really good surface level stats. You feel good about him as an outfield prospect moving forward. Jonathan Clase came over from Seattle in a trade last year. Got up with Toronto last year, didn't have really good numbers, struck out about 26% of the time. In the minors, a real mixed bag. 113 weighted runs created plus with Seattle in AAA last year, but just a 67 over here in Toronto. Really solid runner, needs to develop his hit tool a bit more to end up being a good major leaguer. RJ Schreck, real solid numbers last year, 17 homers in 114 games, 42% better than league average, 391 WOBA. Charles McAdoo here, another really solid performer, can play third base, but was listed as an outfielder on MLB Pipeline. The Blue Jays acquired him from the Pirates in exchange for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa at the deadline last year. 138 weighted runs created plus, 17 homers in 124 games. Also related to Bob McAdoo, NBA Hall of Famer. Thought I would throw that in there. Jace Barofin, the final one here. I believe I said that right, hopefully. 126 weighted runs created plus, 14 homers in 112 games. A really solid performing group of outfielders for the Blue Jays. You get really excited about the future in this area. One of the best outfield systems in all of baseball. A good rest of this pitching crop as well. Jake Bloss is your number 5 prospect. Got up to the majors last year. Really solid pitch selection here. 55 fastball, 55 cutter. Couple below average or average pitches and average control. Wasn't great when he was up with the Jays last year, but just 11.2 innings, a 6.94 ERA. In the minors last year, 93.1 innings pitched, a 3.18 ERA, 8.49 Ks per 9 to just 3.47 walks per 9. The next step for him is really developing those secondary pitches. If he does that, he can be one of the best pitchers in this organization. Landon Morales here, the number 7 prospect, got up to A-ball last year. Really solid fastball, fastball, curveball, and slider are good as well. Needs to develop that changeup. Last season, his first run in the minor leagues, 10.2 innings and 0.84 ERA, so really solid numbers, but a really small sample for him. Kendry Rojas, 3 really solid pitches and solid control. He's the number 9 prospect, 23 years old. An amateur free agent out of Cuba from 2020. Really solid minor league numbers. Over A and high A last year, 62.2 innings, a 2.59 ERA, 9.91 Ks per 9, and 2.01 walks per 9. And then 2 guys here from last year's draft. Cal Steven, 2nd round pick, 59th overall. Really solid stats at Mississippi State. Really good fastball, good changeup, and a good slider. Also throws a cutter and a curveball. Really good control for him. He's going to be really solid, I think, in this organization. The number 11 prospect for the Jays. And then Johnny King, 23 years old, number 18 prospect. Really good fastball and curveball. The changeup needs work. The slider is about average as well. 3rd round pick for the Jays last year, got a really big signing bonus. Just 18 years old, a prospect for the Jays. Neither of these guys played in the minors last year. A really solid crew of minor league pitchers and definitely the strength of this organization. A lot of the same in this projected 2028 lineup by Baseball America. Alejandro Kirk, Vlad Jr., Andres Gimenez, Addison Barger, Loperfido, Varsho, and Martinez have all already played for the Jays. No free agency or trades are really worked into this. This is all just what they have in their organization. You feel really good about Kirk and Vlad Jr. long term. Gimenez needs to develop that bat again, but is a great defender. Namala, I feel really positive about going to be their shortstop long term. Interestingly, by Baseball America, no Bo Bichette listed here. I'm not really sure what the reasoning for that is, but I just took this right off of Baseball America. Joey Loperfido in left field, Varsho in center field. Again, 2 really good defenders. Both can take a step forward with the bat. I think I expect Loperfido to have a pretty solid season this year. And then Aurelvis Martinez, feel good about the offensive profile in the minors, has yet to get up to the majors, so still a bit of a question mark. Alan Roden, I think a really good hitter. I would expect him to get up this year. I think I feel all right about this lineup. Might need a couple improvements in terms of offense, but the defensive profile all really stays there. The only one of these guys above 30 in 2028 is Daulton Varsho at just 31. I would expect Toronto to maybe put some more money into this offense, although Vlad Jr.'s contract is going to go up. Kirk's contract is going to go up. I think maybe long-term third base could be a potential option for them at upgrading. But I think you feel pretty solid about the outlook for this lineup going into the future. 2028 rotation and closer here, Ricky Tiedemann they have as the 1 starter. I do think he still has 1 starter stuff. He's going to be coming back from an injury in 2026, so we'll see what he looks like. I really like him long term. I think that is a really good option for them. Trey Savage, 25 years old, as the number 2 starter in 2028. Very excited to see him pitch in this farm system. I loved watching his starts at East Carolina last year. I think a really solid pick in the 1st round. Jake Bloss as a number 3 starter, I mentioned needs a bit of development on a couple of those pitches, but I think can be really good over the long term. And then Berrios and Francis, the holdovers from the current rotation. I do think Berrios is going to be here. He's on a 7-year deal, so why not? If he keeps putting up above average wins above replacement and good numbers, he will definitely be in this rotation. And then Bowden Francis will be 32 years old in 2028. I didn't mention Ryan Jennings. He's projected to be the closer. Really good stats in the minors last couple seasons for the Blue Jays. Last season, split some starts and relief appearances, 21 games total, but 12 starts, a 1.93 ERA, struck out over 10 guys per 9 for the Jays in the minors. I really like this group of pitchers. Obviously, a lot of question marks. We don't know what's going to happen with Tiedemann. Savage has yet to pitch in the minor leagues. Bloss hasn't been great at the major league level, but a really young group. Just Berrios and Francis over 30. Tiedemann and Savage both 25 in 2028. Definitely a strength of this organization, and this doesn't even include a couple of guys that are still on the roster right now. Just some final thoughts here on the Blue Jays. I thought they had a really good offseason. They brought in a lot of help for this team. The offense definitely needs to take a step forward. I think that's the biggest thing. You got a ton out of Vlad Jr. this year. He's actually projected to take a bit of a step back, and their offense was still not great last year. Need the output that you got from Santander last year. Bo Bichette's got to take a step back to 2023 and 2022. I would almost expect him to leave after free agency this year, though. The defense and starting pitching is going to be great. The defense is honestly incredible. I can't believe the Blue Jays were able to turn around their defense like this in a couple years, though it did come at the cost of some offense. I think I'm higher on the bullpen than a lot of others that I've seen. The projected numbers are really good, so I think in that area they are a plus. The back end of that bullpen is just so good. Hoffman had a great season last year. It sounds like he had some injury issues, and that's why he wasn't getting much of a free agent market, but I think the Blue Jays really capitalized on that. A solid crew on the bench for the lineup, a really good group coming up through the system, and guys like Orelvis Martinez and Alan Rodin that can help out the team this year. I think if I'm looking at the projected win total of 85 and 77, I would like over 85. I don't believe in this rotation as much as a lot of people, but I think there's options coming through the system that can help them. They could also go get somebody. I like the lineup, the defense, and the bullpen a lot, and that's going to put me a bit more optimistic than most people. Big year for the Blue Jays and Vlad Jr. I think if they can be competitive, they can keep him, and this is really make or break for them. I think if they don't re-sign Vlad, they're going to have to start a bigger rebuild. But thank you guys so much. If you're listening to this, please like, subscribe, and comment. This channel is growing just a little bit every day, and it's really exciting to me. All of the research and all of the stuff into this video is just done by me, so it means a lot being able to see that growth. 20 more teams to push out by opening day. This is a breakdown of the 2025 Toronto Blue Jays organization.